With the promise of whiskey, Jeffries easily secured the unwitting aid of two fellow servants and assumed a position at the service door. He wagered that he could pinch 2 or 3 good bottles of liquor from the kitchen if his companions would cover for him. I have just explained what happened next. After the shooting, he took 2 bottles of excellent whiskey. Only someone knowledgeable would have taken these 2 bottles over the others, and Mr. Jeffries had been formerly employed at a luxurious hotel in France. Upon his return, he gave an accounting to his fellow servants, did his hair, and left the manor. The promised delivery of the liquor and his frightened look secured the 2 men's cooperation in providing his alibi. They could not have known his true role in these events. The one problem for the conspirators was the barman Simon Hunter. He had perfect eyesight, unlike the colonel, and realized that the man who claimed to be near the bar at the time of the murder had in fact lied. He hinted as much to Mr. Harrington and most certainly intended blackmail. As they were short on funds, the accomplices gave him Miss Davenport's earring as collateral and pledged to return with the money he demanded. That night, when Lieutenant Harrington visited us in London, he had just come from Simon Hunter's. Hunter had told Harrington that the earring had been pawned and he would not reveal the name of the shop unless Harrington paid him his money. Mr. Harrington ruthlessly killed Hunter, and the earring so precious to Mr. Jeffries was lost. Earlier that morning, Jeffries lured Collins to the cement factory on the pretext of fabricating false evidence against Grimble. But they no longer needed Collins to acquire the Bromsby fortune. Mr. Harrington would wed the young heiress, then, after a reasonable time, they would cause her untimely death, and they would take it all. So Mr. Jeffries murdered Collins and made sure his body was barely recognizable. If he was identified, it would not affect their plans, as they believed leaving the corpse at the cement factory would direct suspicion towards Grimble. When Mr. Harrington came to see us, he learned we were hot on Collins' trail and had traced his movements up to the factory. He assumed we would go there within the hour and left to quickly round up his associates and devise a plan. Jeffries, from his days at the Fairfax Theatre, knew an Asian of questionable talents who had no visible ties with this case and could attack us without drawing suspicion their way. We avoided this attack, and from that moment I was convinced of Lieutenant Harrington's involvement in the conspiracy. The last elements of proof were revealed at the vagrants' camp near the monastery outside of London. Mr. Jeffries had tramped through England in his past and might have thought to hide Collins in the forest near the Richmond's Abbey. The very day that I was there, he tried to destroy all evidence of Collins' murder. Fortunately, he did not manage to destroy everything. It seems Collins, foreseeing his possible death, left a small surprise for his accomplices. It would be easily missed, except by someone who observes all and misses nothing.
But this is merely some draft to lull us to sleep, Mr. Holmes. Lavinia, surely you can't believe these mad accusations. They arise from nothing. What proof do you offer for what you say? None.
Believe what you will, Mr. Harrington. I will warn you that Mr. Collins left a letter written in his own hand, which named yourself and Mr. Jeffries and accused you both of complicity in the murder of his uncle. At this very moment, Inspector Lestrade's men are conducting a search of your rooms. They will find the evidence that, when added to the accusations within this letter, will prove your guilt beyond all doubt. The Chirapaqui cigarettes, your portfolio, as well as a feather from the pillow which was taken from Horace Fowlett's. These items prove my deductions. I suggest we wait here for their arrival with these proofs, and I assure you our wait will be brief.
Bravo, Mr. Holmes. Well done. Accept my apologies, my dear Lavinia. I think under the circumstances it would be best if we postponed our engagement. I'm sorry for your father, but what do you expect? We had to give it our best shot.
Where is the earring now? You will tell me, where is it? Unless you tell me at once where the earring is, no one will leave this room alive. Don't you understand? You are all going to die.
They are all yours, Lestrade. I suggest you return with your agents to London as soon as possible.
Good on you, Grimble.
Thank you, Mr. Grimble, for literally applying my precepts. Watson, let us escort Miss Bromsby to her rooms. She will need her rest.
Where was Watson's revolver?
Holmes,
Collins never named either Harrington or Jeffries in his letter.
No, he didn't.
Indeed, Watson.
You
But they
bluffed.
could not have known. I played my bluff, and they believed me.
And Grimble, where did he appear from?
You can now boast that one of the most influential men in England served as your driver. Since my visit to Fowlett's, I knew that Grimble had nothing to do with this crime. I asked him to assist with the investigation, and it was at my request that he took steps to acquire Bromsby Enterprises. He gained us precious time by forcing Harrington and Jeffries to wait and see if Miss Bromsby would inherit. He ran quite a risk in doing me this favour, because their plot then turned against him. I also asked him to send the letter which lured the two murderers away from the hall. I needed a moment to explain everything to Miss Lavinia. It would be dreadful if she fell into the hands of her father's killer. From the beginning, Grimble was concerned only with saving her inheritance. He never once doubted her innocence.
Nevertheless, didn't he misappropriate those funds?
Indeed, but not for his own profit. It was solely to protect his friend Bromsby. An ex-architect with whom he had quarrelled, a Mr. Waters, had contacted Sir Bromsby before this intrigue began. Waters learned from Captain Bowie that Sir Bromsby had encouraged certain actions against workers hired to build a bridge in India. That project was the bridge over the Kalidasa Abyss. Waters blackmailed Bromsby from afar. Grimble received the letters and considered them to be quite serious. He knew his hot-tempered friend well and preferred to conceal the blackmail attempt for fear of disastrous consequences. So Grimble made regular payments to Waters in exchange for his silence. Unfortunately, Collins discovered the arrangement while he was working at the cement factory and threatened to reveal everything. Grimble could not afford for that to occur. He managed to rid himself of Collins by sending him to Fowlett. Then it was Bromsby's turn to discover the blackmail by sheer accident. He was angered, but before he could decide his next move, Mr. Waters died suddenly and removed all threat. When Grimble learned that Waters had died, he confessed all to Bromsby. He noted that the money paid was a pittance when measured against Bromsby Enterprises, and that the same amount could now be applied in other ways. India had enriched them so greatly, and Bromsby had been cursed over the harm done to the Indian people in his employment. It was decided that these same funds would now be sent on a monthly basis to a Bombay orphanage in the care of a Sergeant Brahmai. It is possible that Bromsby intended to increase his patronage, and this was the important news he intended to reveal to the press at his daughter's reception. It was she who had harshly reproached him regarding his behaviour towards the Indians in his employ. Do you remember the words from that poem which he had written into his notes? It said that the ungrateful always die miserably.
Indeed, Holmes. But there is one thing that I still don't understand. Why did you ask Lestrade to put Richards behind bars? He wasn't guilty of any crime, but you treated him as a murderer.
I advised Lestrade that it would be prudent to place Richards in custody so we could protect him from harm. Mr. Richards is a wise and intelligent man. He would have recognized Harrington and Jeffries on sight. When he realized that Jeffries was alive and that I possessed the missing earring, he would have drawn the same conclusions as I. So this investigation would have been stopped cold by one or two more murders.
I see.
Well, Watson, you seem to know everything. Tell me, please, that small missive which I can see on the desk. It contains 2 invitations to the opera's opening night, does it not? If so, we shall finally have our opportunity to hear this marvellous soprano. Well, what do you say, Watson?
Hooray! Hello, and welcome to the ending credits of Sherlock Holmes and the Silver Earring. You may note that I'm not actually watching these credits. I'm not going to be noticing who's done what or what's been done or who's thinking me because the music's just too loud. I can't speak over it. So I'm editing this in using the power of Audacity. Hooray! A few things. Just looking at this kind of puzzle game challengey thingy thing I came up with. This game scored 19 points. So looking at walkthrough, randomly clicking on screen or scanning over things randomly without any kind of logic to it. So I don't know if that's good or bad. You know, the first one, you don't have any statistics to work from. that's kind of interesting. It did seem, just thinking plot-wise, it did seem a bit wonky. The end resolution did make sense. It does make sense that you've got these people who've heard of this wealthy man, especially when one of them's related to him, decided to go after the money and through inheritances and da-da-da-da-da. I didn't like the ending, though. The ending of the game didn't have a lot of game to it, for lack of a better word, where it was just, this is what Sherlock Holmes reveals, and this is what Sherlock Holmes knows, and a lot of it was, I never would have got that, and the last quiz. I think if you'd merged them, those last quizzes and that final cinematic, so instead of having one big cinematic, instead you had a little cinematic and then a question, and you had to look at the evidence and work it out. I think that would have been a lot better. There would have been more kind of, okay, so who do you think killed Sir Bromsby? Okay, well, it was Lieutenant Harrington. Okay, but how did he stay hidden? Okay, well, there was an actor there who had the red wig. I mean, some of the questions up till this point seemed completely irrelevant, that from my perspective, I don't know about you, but from my perspective, just didn't seem to fit into the story. So I think that was quite problematic. Voice acting, not brilliant. Alright, I suppose. Animation, the elbows are weird. I only really noticed it in the closing cutscene, but the elbows are a bit weird. They don't seem to bend properly. It's like someone's got like a cardboard tube and you bend it and it goes kind of all the way down, rather than a proper elbow working with the kind of joints and hinges. So I think it's a fairly passable game. It's well, passable is kind of an insult, really. It is a good game. It you know, I've done this quite quickly. I think I've done this the recording in about a week, so it's really kept me going. It has one of my pet peeves, which is game overs in puzzle games. No, don't, bad, no. Game overs in puzzle games just seem to kind of rub me the wrong way, because it's, especially when it's got that forced stealth section, just throw me back outside. The burnt evidence didn't even give us a lot, or didn't give me a lot. Okay, Wyatt Collins was there. Yeah, knew that. The drunken letter, so we knew it was Wyatt Collins. Yeah, I knew it was I knew it was Wyatt Collins already. The footprint, the 10 footprint. Yeah, I know it's Wyatt Collins. I know Wyatt Collins is the man here. I don't need you to tell me these things. I knew it. So that's kind of one of the irritating things, and also not being able to leave until you found all the evidence. Why don't you just say, here's the day, you've got to find all the evidence, and until you do that, you're not going to end the day. And especially when it's kind of fairly minor evidence. Ooh, there was someone with a size 7 shoe. Hooray. How's that helpful? Very good game. Well, I said very good. It was a good game. And then going on to whatever game I'm going to be let's playing next. Hopefully, I'll see you there. Goodbye.